The front page of the Washington Post yesterday featured a story about the Dalai Lama visit to Washington this week, a trip which will be marked by what doesn't take place. For the first time since 1991, the spiritual leader, a Nobel Prize Peace recipient, will not be afforded a meeting with the President of the United States. This is a mistake which has far-reaching consequences. China has initiated a global effort to stop heads of state from hosting the Dalai Lama. As the Wall Street Journal editorial page pointed out yesterday, quote, China routinely assails countries whose leader meet with the Dalai Lama, targeting France and Germany in recent years by cutting off diplomatic exchanges and canceling conferences and the like. The Dalai Lama is set to travel to New Zealand and Australia later this year. He has yet to secure a commitment from their leaders to meet. Will these countries follow our lead? I've been to Tibet. I've seen the Buddhist monks and nuns in the Dropsy prison. I've met frightened Tibetans who quietly showed me their forbidden photo of the Dalai Lama. I wonder if their plight received even passing mention during internal White House deliberations about whether to meet with the Dalai Lama before the president's November trip to China, or were they simply a nuisance in the context of a larger bilateral relationship? An unnamed administration official in a Post story justified the decision by saying, quote, this president is not interested in symbolism or photo ops, but in deliverables. I, too, am interested in deliverables, as is the human rights community, but I'm interested in symbols, and the president should be too. Symbolism is powerful. If we surrender to this Chinese government, we have surrendered something far greater than the president may realize. The Tiananmen Square demonstrators of 20 years ago understood that symbols speak volumes. They carried papier-mâché models of the Statue of Liberty. Ronald Reagan, too, understood symbols. He understood there was something symbolically stirring about him standing at the Brandenburg Gate and calling on the then Soviet leader to tear down that wall that divided the people of the East and West Berlin. Ronald Reagan understood there was something symbolically powerful about evoking the name of Solzhenitsyn when he spoke at the Danilov Monastery in Russia. The very same dissident who more than a decade earlier, reminiscent of this week's events, was denied a visit with President Ford, who was worried about upsetting the Russians prior to a summit. This administration may not be interested in symbolism, but that will come as devastating news to millions around the world who yearn for freedom, who cry out for basic human rights, and who expect America, our country, to be their champion when their own voices have been silenced. What about the Coptic Christians in Egypt, the Baha'is in Iran? What about the oppressed citizens of Burma and North Korea and Vietnam? They should rightly be alarmed by the treatment of the Dalai Lama, as this is just one more example of a growing pattern in this administration of sidelining human rights. It's not too late. I call on the President to invite the Dalai Lama to the White House, to reclaim the moral high ground and not kowtow to the Chinese government that brutally oppresses people. I call on the President to stand side by side with His Holiness, a man of peace, and not align America once again with the oppressors in China. Be